Next morning, the unnamed witness is brought back into court and Mr. Cooper begins questioning her again. He says he'll ask questions on other matters now. Asking about the jogging bottoms and the t-shirt, he asks about a previous shooting where she had been on the scene and helped the victim. He asks about the jogging bottoms and the t-shirt. He asks about a previous shooting where she had been on the scene and helped the victim. Mr. Cooper says she had a sexual intimacy with Cashman a few days later, to which the unnamed witness agrees. Is it right you were in your kitchen and you and he engaged in sexual intimacy, says Mr. Cooper. It was not in my kitchen, love. He knocked on my door, he followed me up the stairs. That was the first time Tommy came into my room. It was the last time Tommy came, says the unnamed witness. Did you instigate that sexual contact with him, says Mr. Cooper. I texted him saying I'd been thinking about him. I initiated the first text. Yes. He knocked on my address, says the unnamed witness. Did you pull his pants down, says Mr. Cooper. No, he pulled his own pants down, says the unnamed witness. Sexual intimacy took place on the floor, says Mr. Cooper. No, certainly not, says the unnamed witness. Sexual fluids were produced, is that right, says Mr. Cooper. I think that is my private life. I'm sorry. I'm asking a question about semen here. It's about a little girl, not a semen. The judge reminds her the questions are relevant and asks her to continue answering the questions. Sexual fluids got onto his tracksuit bottoms, says Mr. Cooper. I'm not wearing his pants. How am I supposed to know that? I'm not going to ask if he come on his own pants, am I? Says the unnamed witness. The judge asks her to clarify whether he had the pants on. Not whilst we were having intercourse, no. He was just in his boxers and a pair of socks, says the unnamed witness. As a result of that, you gave him a change of tracksuit bottoms, says Mr. Cooper. Not on that day, I certainly didn't, says the unnamed witness. I'm going to suggest you did. You gave him a change of jogging bottoms and the stains were on his t-shirt. You gave him tracksuit bottoms and a t-shirt, says Mr. Cooper. Can you explain that gunshot residue on his pants, says the unnamed witness. The judge reminds her to stick to answering the questions. The unnamed witness then says she did not give clothes to Cashman on this occasion. Mr. Cooper then says, on that night Tommy Cashman did not come to your home. So why were the clothes found in his address? Why was the DNA found on his clothes, says the unnamed witness. He didn't come home that night, says Mr. Cooper. He definitely come because I would not have known the name. Never seen the guy before. Next day I seen the guy in the newspaper, says the unnamed witness. All the information you've given, you could have got from other sources, says Mr. Cooper. I find that impossible, says the unnamed witness. I was petrified. I didn't want to speak. It was the first couple of interviews. I was absolutely petrified, says the unnamed witness. You told the police Tommy Cashman came into the house. Paul got in, and you saw all that. You were not that petrified enough to say that, were you? Let me put it another way. What you said to the police there, you were not frightened to say, says Mr. Cooper. I was petrified. I was getting made out as if I was assisting an offender, like I had done something wrong. I've got woken by a guy coming into my room after doing a dreadful thing, putting my life in danger, says the unnamed witness. If you're telling the truth about being petrified, why say anything, says Mr. Cooper. I weren't going to lie about a little girl. I was petrified to speak about Tommy. He's got to come to my address. What's he going to be doing to me? I was absolutely mortified I'd been put in that situation. You'd have said nothing, said Mr. Cooper. I was absolutely petrified. I've never been in a situation like that, says the unnamed witness. Calm down, says Mr. Cooper. I am calm, Sir Cooper, says the unnamed witness. Mr. Cooper then says something about the cross-examination going quicker if she answers the questions. The witness says, "You're not letting me answer. That's why I'm interrupting all the time. Let me ask the question and I'll let you answer. Why mention him Paul Russell at all. We're not going to protect that piece of shit in there, she refers to Cashman. When there's a little girl involved, there's no grassing. I'm here for my life and Olivia's family only. The judge states that Mr. Cooper has a job to do, and she also states that it's not personal. The witness says, he's made it personal for the past 2 days. I've been humiliated. I don't think Mr. Cooper or his client really care. Speaking of Paul Russell, the witness says Paul projectile vomited afterwards and he was white as a ghost. She says, I certainly wanted to tell them every last detail. I told them little white lies in the first interviews. How long was Cashman there before Russell arrived? Mr. Cooper asks. We had about a 3-minute conversation. I then took my phone, called Paul. The phone call lasted approximately 5 seconds. The witness then says that she asked Cashman who else was involved in the incident. Supposedly then he made a gesture towards Joseph Nee's race. The witness then says that Cashman then opened the front door and waited for Russell to arrive. Don't get hot-headed, sir. Please don't get hot-headed, says the unnamed witness. Mr. Cooper asks her, have you always told the truth to the police? I lied and said Tommy took the clothes, says the unnamed witness. From the 3rd interview it all came out. From the 4th, 5th interviews, and from the ABEs, my story has been the same, exactly the same. When you told the police that Cashman left in the same clothes he came in, that was a lie. The witness agrees. Mr. Cooper then moves on to another part of these police interviews. Mr. Cooper says this line of questioning from the police officers is when you were asked about a health app. The witness says, yeah, that's when it all came out. The investigators told me about the health app on my phone and it had all these steps around my house. Mr. Cooper then explains to the jury what the app was on her phone. The witness says, I've got a Fitbit. I was in the gym a lot. That Fitbit plotted, didn't it? Steps and distances, didn't it? And locations, says Mr. Cooper. At the time of the interview, that didn't cross my mind. The only thing on my mind was a family going through such heartache, says the unnamed witness. If I was trying to hide evidence, why did I not delete all those messages, says the unnamed witness. That's when the police caught you out, says Mr. Cooper. I looked at my solicitor and apologised and sold my soul to the devil, basically. You wouldn't have stopped lying if you hadn't been caught out on that health app, says Mr. Cooper. No, I wouldn't have, no, says the unnamed witness. Of course you changed your story. We suggest, when they tripped you up, what were you caught on in the fact that you've been around and about certain areas of your house more than you said you were, says Mr. Cooper. I was pacing up and down thinking about what's going on here. Are you for real? I'm sure you would have been pacing up and down. Were you aware the defendant had been supplying Paul with cannabis to sell? Says Mr. Cooper. No, he certainly wasn't. Ha ha ha. You're a funny man. I'd like to know what your client's telling you, because basically you haven't got a clue, says the unnamed witness. Paul was in debt with Thomas Cashman, says Mr. Cooper. No, he certainly wasn't, says the unnamed witness. Paul was in debt to Tommy Cashman to the sum of about £25,000, says Mr. Cooper. Wow, that's absolutely ridiculous. Tommy Cashman never dealt with stuff like that. That was too poxy for him. You're making me laugh. I'm enjoying myself here now, says the unnamed witness. At this time, the judge calls for a short break. The witness then responds, Mr. Cooper's getting very hot-headed here now. Mr. Cooper continues questioning the witness. One way of avoiding the debt was to get Tommy Cashman off the scene, says Mr. Cooper. No, Tommy Cashman took himself off the scene, says the unnamed witness. He suggests that the witness was in need of money. Now, Mr. Cooper highlights a message she sent to a friend, in which she says she owes £2,500 in rent to Riverside Housing Association. The witness agrees that she owed money for rent. Mr. Cooper then references another message in which she says, I'm on my arse at the minute. The witness says this was a week prior to the shooting. I was scared I'd lose my house, says the unnamed witness. You were in severe financial difficulty, says Mr. Cooper. It was just the rent. I was paying that back. I was actually stable. Do you know that you've been described as a key and significant witness in this case, says Mr. Cooper. Yeah, says the unnamed witness. That's the importance of this evidence, says Mr. Cooper. We're straying into comment here, says the judge. But we haven't heard half the evidence, says the unnamed witness. Did you have any discussion about a reward, says Mr. Cooper. No, we had a discussion. I think it was about a month ago. We mentioned it in one of the interviews. I went mad. We've risked our lives to come forward with this information, and they put that money up. We've jeopardised our lives. We've come and told you that information. Why would you do that? But it was good. They wanted to find the weapon basically and more witnesses. I've never asked questions. I never asked or been interested in the money. When we came forward on day 2, there was not a reward at all. We already came forward first. There was no way, shape or form we would be entitled to that money. I've kept an eye on this case from day 1. Nothing to do with the Crime Stoppers money. I've looked at Liverpool Echo every minute of every day. You followed the allegations in this case, says Mr. Cooper. I've probably done a lot more homework than you have, admits the unnamed witness. You said there was a reward for £50,000 and then £100,000, and you jokingly asked Merseyside police officers, Abby and Dave, would you be entitled to the money? No, we were having the conversation. They brought up the conversation they were going to ask you about the money. It's never about the money. We came forward day 2 without any reward being offered. We couldn't sleep at night. We wanted to the first day, but we couldn't trust anyone. If you'd done your homework, you'd have seen there was no reward put up when we were in custody. You're incorrect. We have a laugh. We have no banter. We have a little laugh and a joke. A new word you've learned today, banter, says the unnamed witness. At this point, the judge tells her to stop it. Mr. Cooper continues to carry on and reads from a police document saying, the witness stated to me there was no reward, but then there was a reward for 50k and then 100k. She said she jokingly asked MP police officers would she be entitled to the money. Mr. Cooper says, did you say that? Not along those lines, says the unnamed witness. Did you specifically say that? Says Mr. Cooper. You're putting words in my mouth, says the unnamed witness. You're not being fair. In terms of sleeping with the defendant, you did so on more than 3 occasions, says Mr. Cooper. It wasn't even 3. The second time he couldn't even get hard. We spent the full day yesterday about this, says the unnamed witness. Most of the time he communicated over Instagram, says Mr. Cooper. Because he's dodgy, that's why. He's a dodgy character, says the unnamed witness. You told him you wanted to run away to Spain. He said no because he loved Kaylee and the kids and you were a bit of fun, says Mr. Cooper. He's not even honest with his bird, says the unnamed witness. Did he say that to you, says Mr. Cooper. No, never, says the unnamed witness. If he had, that would have made you very angry, says Mr. Cooper. The witness gets angry and says, is this all he has really got on me? Mr. Cooper then continues questioning the unnamed witness. He says he will clarify some context for her understanding. Mr. Cooper says, we say that you are lying when you say the death came to your home on August 22nd. Do you understand that? I do, says the unnamed witness. It follows, therefore, you are lying about what he said to you. My lady, we have no further questions, says Mr. Cooper.